Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Jobadiah Christensen. Today I'm going to talk about a issue in Ninth Age Fantasy Tabletop Miniatures game, and this is something that I've seen come up on the forums a lot, especially in the last year. And I've posted my comments a little bit on some of the Discords, the USA Discord, but I wanted to make a video about it and just talk through it to get it out to a wider community. Now, hopefully you saw my disclaimer. These are all just personal opinions. What I'm going to show you is not the mindset of the Ninth Age staff. I am a volunteer on the Ninth Age staff now as part of a community engagement, and I want to just make this clear that this is not the overall opinion of the Ninth Age staff at large. This is just a participant who sometimes plays this way with my friends, and it's not going to be made an official rule at all. So let's get into it. This popped up today, or actually yesterday, on the Ninth Age Forum. Visit the Ninth Age Forum. Chess clocks in tournaments. There's been several of these posts over the last year, and I just want to talk about it. So basically, um, the issue is that some people feel like they want to play a Ninth Age game in 2 or 3 hours, and they don't like when games take 4 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours, or I've actually played games that have taken 7 or 8 hours. And so they feel that maybe they should institute chess clocks as a way to speed it up. So basically, that's the premise of it. Apparently, there's apps you can use on your phone as a timer. Basically, the mindset is you give each person like an hour, basically, and then you run the clock. And then they have to do their whole game, all their moves, all their shooting, whatever, combat, magic, within that hour. And so you keep a timer, and then there people are saying that maybe you should institute a penalty if they go over that hour mark by the end of the game, but this way at least people can get through the 6 turns in a reasonable amount of time. And for some, that mean reasonable amount of time is 2.5 hours or 3 hours of real world time, whichever you prefer. I do have to say I don't have a strong horse in this race because personally, I actually really like playing 6 hour games. I like long games. 3 hours is not long enough for me to actually enjoy Ninth Age. 4 to 5 hours is the regular time it takes me to play a game, but I am fine playing a 6 hour game. It doesn't bother me at all. I like long games. I play Risk because Risk is a longer board game, and I play computer games that take 30 hours to complete with my brother, like Civilization 6. Like, we'll literally spend 30 hours playing through. So, there you have it. So that is the logic of using a chess clock. And if you want to look through this, I'm going to post these links to the forum post so you can keep on top of the conversation there. But I'm actually going to propose an alternative. It's similar to a chess clock, but it's a little bit more standardized. Rather than just saying you have the same amount of time as your opponent, it's a little bit different. So this is something, actually, I think I talked about it a long time ago when I was going through and playing a homebrew campaign with my brother and some of our friends. And he came up with this to make people play faster. Because traditionally in our group, we would play for 5 or 6 hours and we would only get through about 4 turns. And so none of us had ever literally finished a game. We also didn't really play with objectives. We just would always um, just push units at each other and fight. And to us, that was fun. And then I started playing with people outside of my friends and found out that our objectives are a big part of the game. And anyway, my brother decided it's certain armies, basically certain battles, and you know this to be true. If you end on turn 4 or you end on turn 6, there's often a lot of stuff that happens, and so it's really important to finish out the game. So for our homebrew campaign, he made up these quick play rules so that people could get used to playing faster. And I actually found these quick play rules really useful. I went to my first in-person Ninth Age tournament in January of 2020. That was my first in-person tournament. I'd only ever played with my friends. I played a little bit on UB the fall before that, and I played one or two games at a game store, and that was it. And then I went to a tournament. Um, I that fall and part of that winter, I started playing with these quick play rules with my brother, and playing in this way actually helped me play a lot faster and be confident that I could go to a tournament and play a tournament battle in 3 hours instead of the 6 hours that I was used to. Like I literally have to play twice as fast. So I'm just going to go through these quick play rules. These are all rules that my brother wrote up and I have tested with him. I've played with him several times. We worked out kind of a system. We kind of worked it out together, though he's the main brains behind it. So I'm just going to bring these to you now. So let's read through it and discuss. Okay, quick play rules for battles. We do have a rule when we were playing the campaign with each other. We should use these rules, but if all players agree to opt out, that's fine. So if two players felt that they didn't want to use these rules, they just wanted to play the way they used to playing, that's fine. But with my gaming group, as I explained, you basically had to anticipate if you wanted to actually play all 6 turns, you need to budget and set aside 6 to 8 hours if you were going to play a 6 turn battle. And so, my brother said, we're gonna use quick play rules, and we actually played some warband skirmish battles of like 2,500 or less points. And using these rules, we knocked those out in 2 hours or like an hour and a half, which is just unheard of. Like we were amazed we could actually play a whole battle in 2 hours. So that's the power of these rules, just up front. Okay. A special note, if a player has a question, the player should ask it to the opposing team. If they can answer it, great. If not, then you stop the timer and both teams find out the answer. So when you're looking up answers in the book or you have a rules question, you stop the clock. So the game still slows down because a lot of us still don't know all the rules, so we stop and we look up the rules a lot. So you do stop the clock, okay? That doesn't come against you. If you don't know a rule, that's fine. Just stop the clock and look it up. The rules are not intended to make it harder for players who don't know the rules, as asking questions, whether it is stats about an enemy unit or general gameplay, can actually buy time. So it's actually you're encouraged to ask rules because it's kind of like bonus time for you. All right. But here's some tips. Come knowing the rules of your units with lists printed or written out, units on movement trays, and with an idea of what spells you want to choose and how you might want to deploy. There's not much time to decide during the game, as you will see coming up. Also, using these rules just helped me be a better player in general and prepare me for going to tournaments. Again, so if you're just a casual player and you're like, Jobadiah, I could never go to a tournament, though I'd like to because I don't play fast enough. I can't make decisions. Well, maybe try out these rules. Play a couple games with this, and it'll just get you used to playing faster if you don't know how to play faster. So, all right. And be okay messing up. This is stuff my brother just wrote in after we played. Every game so far with these rules, both players have had the time run out on them and also forgotten magic items, abilities, and so forth. It's okay to not be perfect, to mess up deployment, to feel like you threw the game because of it. You will play more games and more turns due to these rules, and that will help you to learn faster. The campaign is not really designed to be won or lost on the battlefield. So, basically using these rules, and we're going to go through it here in a minute. There's a lot of situations where if the clock runs out, your turn is basically over. And so if you forget to do something, there's no, oh, hey, can I go back and do that? No. You just keep playing on and you just forget that that happened. And there's just, it forces you to learn your rules. That was another point I wanted to bring up. The benefits of playing this way is if you don't know your rules, you're going to miss out on a lot because there's no time to look stuff up. So it forces you to memorize your unit stats, to know all your special rules, and to remember to do things in the right order because you won't be able to go back and correct them. So there you have it. Okay, let's get into what the actual rules are. Pre-game sequence. The team has 20 seconds to choose a deployment zone. Let me just read that again for everybody. So when it comes to the pre-game sequence, normally you roll for table sides, and then someone chooses a side. So at this point, you have 20 seconds to choose a zone. If not chosen in time, then your opponent has 20 seconds to choose one. And here's a fluff piece to describe it. The generals were too indecisive in picking the high ground, and the other general now has a chance to decisively seize it. We also came up with these rules to simulate more realistic battle because we play Ninth Age because we want to simulate what an actual battle would be like. And my brother and I decided that in Ninth Age, it's unrealistic that a general would have 30 minutes to decide what he's going to do, right? In the thick and heat of battle, a general has to make a split-second decision, and playing with these rules simulates that. So you have 20 seconds to deploy your deployment zone. Okay. Then you go on to spell selection. Each team has 20 seconds per wizard apprentice, so that's choosing one spell. 40 seconds per wizard adept, that's two spells. And 120, this should say seconds. Do I have edit access? No. This should be 120 seconds per wizard master. A minute 20 per wizard master. That's 4 spells to pick spells. So you basically have 20 seconds to select each spell. So if you have 8 spells, you have 2.5 minutes to choose your spells. If not picked in time, any wizards who have not picked spells come to the battle without spells prepared. So you literally don't have a spell. Okay, if you take too long, like if you know automatically I'm gonna pick these two spells because usually there's that case where you have a master, you're like I know I'm gonna take these two, and then you kind of quibble about the third and fourth. Well, if you run out of time, you use your minute 20. Say you have a single wizard master, and in the first, you choose two spells, and then with the last minute, you're like, you keep going back and forth, and you don't choose your third and fourth spells. Well, if your clock runs out before you announce what you're taking, you literally don't take those spells. You literally just take the two that you announced. So this, there's people on the forums who are talking about the chess clocks, and they are trying to figure out like what are the negatives if you run out of time, because they're thinking in terms of each player should be allotted the same amount of time for the whole battle. And then if the time doesn't run out, or the time runs out and you didn't get through the whole battle, then you get penalized on the whole battle. Like you take away victory points at the conclusion of the game. The way my brother set it up is there's actually incentives throughout the battle. So if maybe you're slow in making deployment decisions, your opponent gets to choose the deployment zone, but you still, that would be your only negative at that point. So each different stage of the game, you have an opportunity to make quick decisions, and you'll either be penalized, dependent upon those, depending on what those decisions actually are, rather than playing a whole game out and then being penalized on top of your whole game. It's just a different way of doing it. Okay. Moving on. This really isn't an issue for us. Like usually we pick our deployment zones and our spells pretty quickly. It's really not that hard to pick spells this quickly. Okay. Each team now, okay. Each team has 20 seconds. This is where it gets a little bit math. Each team has 20 seconds. We basically decided 20 seconds is enough time to make a decision. So anytime you have to make a decision, you usually are granted about 20 seconds. And then it gets multiplied depending on what the magnitude of your decision is. Per 2250 points of army roundup, total to declare special deployment. So if you have scouts, you have 20 seconds to declare your scouts, whether or not those units are going to scout. Any units not declared, I guess if you have a 4,500 point army, a full army, you would have 40 seconds to declare if anything is going to be scouting or ambushing. He has the rules written this way because in our campaign, army lists start as small as I think 3,000, and they can get as big as 9,000 or something. Anyway, okay, note for the following rules, even if a player forfeited the right to make a decision by taking too long, for each step the player is counted as having chosen still. So, for example, the team that did not choose the deployment zone decides what team deploys first. If the team took too long, it is possible for the second team to choose both the deployment zone and who deploys first. Okay, yeah. So you still you count it as if your opponent did choose the deployment zone, but if it took too long, it's the same rules as normal. We don't change the core rules. All right. Team discussion, because we like to play teams a lot in campaigns. We play a lot of 2v2 and 3v3 battles in our home group. Teams now have 5 minutes to discuss strategy or units and abilities whenever they want. After this point, you can still discuss, but will often be on a timer, making it very difficult, especially in their own turn. So after pregame, you get a 5-minute break to kind of discuss and think through your overall battle plan before you start deployment, because deployment goes real quick this way. Okay. So you get that 5 minutes, and then you start deployment. For deployment, the team has 20 seconds to decide who deploys first. If the team does not decide, the other team gets to decide. So it's the same as picking the deployment zone. You have 20 seconds. Okay, now here's the part that really speeds it up. Each team has 20 seconds to deploy a unit. If a unit is deployed in time and the team wants to deploy another, you get another 20 seconds to do so. Once they no longer want to deploy a unit or they fail to within 20 seconds, the other team gets to deploy with the same rules. If the team failed to deploy at least one unit before failing or choosing to do so, that team's deployment phase ends and the rest of the units enter as per marching columns, page 34 of the core rulebook. Once a unit is deployed in the next 20 seconds start, that unit no longer can be moved or deployed elsewhere. Note, characters that are placed in units merely must be placed next to the unit they will be deploying in within the 20 seconds. They can then be arranged at leisure. Yeah, because sometimes it takes more than 20 seconds just to arrange a character within a unit, and we don't want to penalize you just because you're making your unit look nice or whatever. So you just say, okay, this character's going in this unit, and you just put it there, and then you don't touch it. You move on, and then your clock starts over, and you get another 20 seconds. Characters not deploying within a unit must be deployed in their exact locations, such as a character on a monster, a mount. So this really speeds up your deployment because if you're dropping all, you literally have 20 seconds per unit. So you have 20 seconds, and it's not really mentioned at the beginning, but I should mention it here. For all of the timekeeping, your opponent is responsible to do that for you. And that's also how you keep the game moving along. So when I was playing with my brother, we each would have a stopwatch and or use our phones, and we would keep track. So I would, he would put a unit down, and then I would start the timer over and say, okay, you have 20 seconds. And then when it gets, down, I give him like a 5-second warning. He has to put a unit down, and then I start the clock over. And then as soon as he drops that unit, you move on. And so you literally can deploy a whole army in 2 minutes using these rules because you only have 20 seconds, and it's fair because each person has to do it. So you have 2 minutes basically to deploy, and your opponent has 2 minutes to deploy. Or if you're trading off and you decide, okay, I'm just going to deploy one unit, and you take 15 seconds, you place that unit, and you say, okay, this is just the one unit I'm putting down. Then you hand it off to your opponent. Now his clock starts. He has 20 seconds to figure out where he's going to counter deploy, and then he can decide if he's going to drop all or just place one and then move on. So it really speeds up the deployment, and that's also where these rules come into effect massively because deployment, like it is very common in my gaming group to literally take an hour. Actually, we have taken 2 hours to just do the deployment. Like pre-game and deployment, we've taken 2 hours. And so if you use this, you can literally do deployment phase in 5 minutes and just move on, and it super speeds up the game. Okay. Moving on. Now you have 20 seconds to decide if you're going to play first or second. Otherwise, the other team gets to choose. And again, they only have 20 seconds. Now, if the time runs out for each, I think it goes back to the original player. So you also don't want to take too long. If your first player takes too long, then you get to decide. If you take too long, it goes back to your opponent, and he still gets another 20 seconds to try to decide. So that's also how that works. All right, the team now has 20 seconds per unit remaining to deploy the rest of their units. Any not deployed will start off the board. And then if you take too long and you didn't drop a unit within the 20-second time, your units will come on the board, but they come on as per marching columns. So we also saw that, there's the marching column rule in the rulebook, and he found that and said, this actually matches the situation perfectly, right? You took too long, your units are still marching up from the back of the column. All right. What is 10F in the rulebook? I should have pulled it out. 20 seconds per unit. Any units not deployed that were supposed to be are instead deployed as reinforcements. I don't have my rulebook handy. Okay. Then for Vanguard, oh, that must be scouting, right? You have 20 seconds to put your scouts. Then for Vanguards, you have 20 seconds to make your Vanguard move. I know a lot of people that take several minutes figuring out their Vanguard move. Just take 20 seconds and do your Vanguard move. If the second team wins the rule, That's not spelled right. I have to go through here. That team has 20 seconds to decide, or the decision goes back to the other team. Okay. Moving on. Start of this turn. Special abilities, magic item, use. Okay. So at the start of your turn, each team has 20 seconds to declare use of an ability or item. Once one is declared, they have another 20 seconds to declare the next one. Once none is declared within 20 seconds, no more items or abilities can be used at the start of this turn. Let me just give an example because when I tried out these rules with my brother, I was playing Empire and he was on Orcs and Goblins. Um, as Empire, one of my special abilities at the beginning of a turn is to issue orders if I have them. There were the first several times, the very first time I used these rules, I think it took me till turn 4 to remember I had orders. Um, and he wouldn't let me. Like I wouldn't. I forgot that I had orders until I'd already moved on to movement phase, and I said, "Oh, I forgot to issue these orders," and he said, "No." Um, he enforced the rules and said, "You forgot to issue orders, so you don't issue orders this turn, and you have to remember it." And so at the beginning of turn 2, you have 20 seconds to figure out and declare what order you're issuing, and then if you have sometimes I have 3 or 4 orders, so you technically would have 80 seconds, but you have to issue an order every 20 seconds. And you have to finish that before you move on to the charge and movement phase. Otherwise, you don't issue orders at all. And that's part of what he said earlier in these rules about you have to remember and know your special rules. We don't go back. And that also keeps the game moving because if you skip something, instead of taking time to go back and undo it, we don't undo it. We just play on. So. Charge phase. You have 20 seconds to declare a charge. Little surprise. Literally everything is 20 seconds. So you have 20 seconds to declare a charge. If a charge is not declared, no more charges may be declared and the charge phase is over. How about that? If a charge is declared, now the other team has 20 seconds to declare a reaction. If no reaction is chosen, then it's automatically a hold reaction. If a flee reaction is chosen, you have 20 seconds. The charging unit has 20 seconds to decide and attempt to redirect the charge. If no decision is made, the original unit must still be charged. If the redirect is successful, the team has 20 seconds again to decide which new unit is the target. If the second target also flees, it keeps going on, etc. You get another 20 seconds to decide which of the 2 units to charge. And then you just repeat that again. So basically, that's how charge phase goes. It goes very quickly when you have 20 seconds to decide. You don't take 5 minutes to figure out, all your charging units. You just figure out, okay, I have to declare a charge within 20 seconds, and you declare it, and you just move along. Then you have movement phase. This is where it gets a little bit more flexible. Okay, because up until now it's been like boom, boom, boom. You have 20 seconds to make your decisions. Movement phase. Count up all friendly units, including each character outside of a unit, but not characters part of units, and including fleeing units. You multiply the number of your units times 20 seconds. You divide by the number of players on the team, and then you start the timer. The team has that much time to complete rallying, fleeing units, flee moves, and moving units. When the timer ends, no more movement can be performed. So typically, my armies have, let's say, 10 units. 10 units times 20 seconds is 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So you literally have 3 minutes and 20 seconds to do your movement phase. Now, this doesn't stay constant throughout the whole game. That's that you count up your number of units every turn. So as the game progresses and you lose units, you get down to 5 units, or you get down to 4 units, or you get down to 3 units. When you get down to the end of the game and you have 3 units left, you literally have one movement. You have 1 minute to move your 3 units. It goes so quickly. I actually really like playing this way when each player is forced to do this because it really makes you think quick. Um, but this way, you might get 3 minutes to move all your units. So you could take 2 minutes to think through your moves and figure it out, and then move everything real quick. But you can't dilly dally because, like I said, our group, we would take 30 minutes to an hour to do the movement phase at the beginning of the game. So there's a big difference between taking an hour to do movement phase and taking 3 minutes to do movement phase. Okay, same thing as shooting phase. It's a lot like, oh, no, 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 no. We got to do magic. All right, magic phase. It's 20 seconds. Each team has 20 seconds to siphon their veils total. This is done simultaneously. That's not that hard. Usually it takes about 20 seconds to siphon your veils. All you're deciding is do you want 3 days or 4 days, or how many veils are you saving? So 20 seconds really isn't that bad in that situation. This is where it gets a little bit hairy. The team has 20 seconds to make a casting attempt, and that means declaring it and rolling the dice. If no attempt is made, the magic phase is over. This is not done simultaneously. So you have to figure out the target of your spell, declare it, roll the dice within a 20-second time period. Once you do that, your the timer kind of then stops and you resolve the spell. And then when the spell is resolved, you get 20 seconds to then declare a new spell. So there's no timer in place for resolving things. That's kind of done outside of the clock, but there's a clock now in place for the things that you can control, right? You can't control how long it's going to take to, resolve a damage spell versus a hex spell because those are two different resolutions. And and what if you misfire, right? A miss or a miscast. A miscast isn't going to go against your timer. And that's the other difference between this and the chess clocks is it seems like when people are advocating on the forums to use a chess clock, they're not allowing time to do the resolution. Right? That time has to go somewhere if you're using a chess clock method. In this method, with what we call quick play rules, we have timers on a lot of things, but when you're resolving things, there's no timer, right? If you want to take 30 minutes to resolve your combat phase, you take 30 minutes to resolve your combat phase, right? Like it's hard. Okay. Shooting phase. Same as magic, you'd have 20 seconds to select a unit and perform a shooting attack. If the unit is not selected within the 20 seconds, your shooting phase ends. So you have to think real quickly and know what you're going to shoot. You declare it, you roll your dice, and then you declare it, you stop the clock, you roll your dice, you resolve the casualties. Then when the casualties are resolved, you get 20 seconds to declare a new shooting attack. So it speeds things up because rather than taking 5 or 10 minutes to think through what you're going to declare, you have to declare it in 20 seconds. And so it speeds up that phase. Melee phase, it's the same thing. You have 20 seconds to choose a combat to do. Here you just choose a combat. If the team does not choose, then the opposing team gets to choose a combat. So you still basically do combat regardless. So it doesn't penalize you so much in melee phase because you're going to do all your combats regardless of which one you choose. But there is some strategy to doing certain combats first, and if you take too long figuring that out, your opponent chooses which combats to do first, and that can hurt you. All right. Yeah, you have 20 seconds to choose a close combat weapon, etc. 20 seconds to decide if you want to make way. 20 seconds if you want to issue a duel. 20 seconds to accept the duel. 20 seconds to decide if you want to restrain or pursue. All right, yeah. After the combat, a team has 20 seconds to decide to restrain or pursue per unit involved. After those 20 seconds, all remaining units pursue. So if you want to do a restrain roll, you have to decide within 20 seconds if you're going to restrain. Otherwise, you automatically are pursuing. It's kind of like Super Frenzy. The teams now have 20 seconds per unit to declare post-combat pivots. You notice it says declare. Um, yeah, to declare if you're going to do one. I don't know if how much time I think you might get 20 seconds to actually do the move. It's not really clear here, but anyway, that is all that quick play rules are. So, there's a lot of phases of the game that if you only have 20 seconds to make the decision, it super speeds up your game. Um, I know a lot of people find this is like super intense, and the first time I played it, like I said, it is very stressful. I get that. It's really stressful to play this way. It's not enjoyable the first time. But if you do this a couple times, then even if you don't use these rules, it just naturally, when you go play not using quick play rules, you're going to play faster. I just wanted to do a refresher of this. I have an in-person tournament coming up this next weekend. I haven't played in person in a year, and I've been playing on UB, and I've been playing literally between 4 and 5 hours for my UB games. I know I'm going to have to play a lot faster, so I just want to even refresh myself and read through these rules because just reading through the rules, I basically trained myself to do my movement phase in 5 minutes. Like, yeah, it's not as fast as in quick play rules, but the only way I know how to play a game in less than 3 hours is if I do my movement phase in maybe 10 minutes. But you really gotta move and not dilly daddle. Because that's what I did when I went to my first tournament. There were a few game. I know there was at least one game we didn't finish, and that was because of my opponent. It wasn't because of me, because I had just played these with these rules, and I was forcing myself to do my movement phase in 10 minutes instead of 30 minutes. And that's the difference between finishing a game and not finishing a game. So, thank you for coming to my ninth age quick play rules TED Talk. If you want to use them, maybe I'll put a link here. I'll copy it into a separate document and share it with you guys. Check out those forum posts and let me know what you think. Should ninth age players institute a chess clock? Should they use these quick play rules? What's acceptable? Um, I know not everyone in my gaming group agrees to using these rules. It's really just my brother and I because we want to play faster. We want to play more games. Um, but there's a time and a place where, yeah, I love playing a 6 hour game and not playing with these rules too. So those are my thoughts on this. As always, leave a like if you like it. Leave a dislike if you really, really super hated it. And I hope that the dice will be with you. Take care.